I turned 45 that morning, and not one person in my family even texted me. I hadn't expected much, but a simple, happy birthday would have been nice. Nothing. The silence didn't bother me as much as it should have. It was just another year of the same old, but it did sting, just a little. By lunchtime, I'd had enough of waiting. I opened Facebook. That's when I saw it. 30-plus photos from a surprise party they'd thrown for my younger brother Kyle the night before, at our mom's house. The same house I had spent days fixing up. Plumbing, kitchen, the works. The caption under the photo of the cake read, "For the one who actually gives us something to celebrate." I couldn't believe it. I didn't even bother reading the comments. I just typed, "Nice cake." A minute later, a reply popped up from Mom. "At least someone's worth baking for." That line hit me harder than I expected. It was like she had stabbed me with it and was waiting for me to bleed out. I didn't feel like fighting, but I wasn't going to let it slide either. I wrote, "Enjoy it while you can." Something in me snapped. I wasn't just forgotten. I was deliberately excluded. And the worst part was, I'd helped fund the damn thing. I'd been sending money to Mom for months to cover Kyle's rent and bills. And they were throwing him a party, on my birthday. Growing up, I was the fixer, the dependable older son. The one who always cleaned up the mess, always held it together, always made sure things ran smoothly. Kyle was the golden boy, the charmer who could talk his way out of anything. And he always needed bailing out. I remember when I was 10, I gave up my birthday money so Kyle could join Little League. I didn't even hesitate. My party got rescheduled, they said. It never happened. I never got my birthday. But Kyle got his game, his new uniform, his chance to play, like he always did. After our parents split when I was 13, things fell apart in ways I didn't even know how to deal with. Dad basically disappeared. Mom got depressed. I was the one who cooked, who paid bills with her checkbook, who walked Kyle to school every morning. He started acting out, getting into trouble. And Mom, she always had an excuse. "He's sensitive. You're strong." It was like she handed me the weight of the world and told me to carry it. I kept my head down and did my best to make sure we didn't drown. I was the responsible one. I got straight A's. I worked a weekend job at 16, paying for my own stuff. No one cared about the awards I earned, though. They skipped my honor society ceremony for Kyle's basketball game. He scored 2 points in a losing game. And somehow, that was more important than me, than anything I had worked for. At 19, I moved out. I paid for my own community college, no help from anyone. Kyle flunked out of 2 colleges and still got a graduation party for passing 1 online class. I should have been furious, but I'd already learned my place. I wasn't the one who got celebrated. In the years since, I just kept doing what I always did. I kept showing up. I didn't ask for anything in return. I gave, they took, and I let them. But this party for Kyle, the one they threw the night before my birthday, the line Mom had written under that photo, "At least someone's worth baking for," it snapped something in me, something I didn't even know was still there. The frustration, the anger, the years of resentment that I'd buried under the weight of being the reliable one. It all came rushing back. The realization hit me. I had been invisible, a second thought in my own family. I'd spent my whole life sacrificing, and it had never been enough. And now, at 45, nothing had changed. I'd funded their celebration. My money had gone to support Kyle's life while mine was ignored. And there it was, right in front of me, a slap in the face. I wasn't going to keep pretending it didn't hurt. I wasn't going to keep being the one who cleaned up everyone's mess. I wasn't going to let Kyle keep coasting on my sacrifices. I got a job in logistics after I graduated, lived cheap, worked hard. I didn't have much, but I had enough to get by. Kyle, though, he always seemed to need more. It was 3 years ago when he called me, his voice full of that same charm he always used to get what he wanted. He said he needed help with rent, just until things evened out. He sounded desperate, the kind of desperate that made it hard to say no. So I didn't. I sent him $1,200 for first and last month's rent. I didn't even think twice about it. He thanked me through Mom. She told me, "It's good you're finally helping your brother." I couldn't help but feel the sting in that. It wasn't the first time I'd helped him out, but it felt like it was the first time anyone had acknowledged it. But the help didn't stop there. Every month, I quietly covered $600 of his rent. No fanfare, no thanks. I never asked for anything in return. I didn't expect it either. That's just what I did. I made sure Kyle didn't have to deal with the consequences of his own actions. Then, not long after I started footing his bills, Kyle told Mom he'd gotten a promotion at his retail job. I didn't believe it, but I didn't say anything. The next week, though, I overheard him talking to Mom while I was in the kitchen. I got fired, he admitted, his voice low. But I didn't want to ruin the holidays, so I told him I'd stay for another month. He was still lying, even to her. The same pattern, the same excuses. I couldn't help but think, why did I keep doing this? I was beginning to see it. This wasn't just about helping Kyle anymore. It was about me, too. I was the one who let things slide. I was the one who kept pretending I could fix everything for him. But no matter how much I did, it was never enough. Last year, on my 44th birthday, I got a text from Mom. Happy B-Day. Taking Kyle suit shopping for his interviews. Call you later. She never did. She didn't even try. It was always Kyle. Always. He was the one that needed the attention, the support, the constant affirmation, and I was just there. It hit me then that I wasn't really part of their world anymore. I had stopped being a priority, even when it came to the small things, like remembering my birthday. I didn't need grand gestures, but it would have been nice to be seen once in a while. I didn't call her back that day. I just sat there, staring at the message, feeling something I couldn't quite name. It wasn't anger, it was resignation. For the first time, I started to wonder if I'd been running on fumes for too long. I stared at the phone screen, the weight of it sinking in slowly. 27 new photos, all from the party at Mom's house. The same house I'd fixed the plumbing in, the same house I'd spent days painting the kitchen. That was where they'd had Kyle's party. I could practically hear the laughter in the photos, the voices, the cheers that I wasn't part of. My dad, who told me he was too slammed to visit me on my birthday, was in the pictures. He was handing Kyle a jewelry box. I squinted at the photo. Looked like a high-end watch. A watch that wasn't mine, that wasn't for me. The caption under one of the photos read, "Celebrating our man, the only one who deserves it." I couldn't breathe. I felt the blood rush to my face, my chest tightening. I read it again. The only one who deserves it. I wasn't even a footnote in their lives anymore. They were all in on this, all of them. They were celebrating him, Kyle, like he was the only one who mattered, like everything I'd done didn't exist. In the next photo, I saw gifts stacked on the table, brightly colored wrapping paper, cards with ribbons. There was a banner across the living room that used to hang above my academic awards. That banner, the one I'd earned through my grades and my work, was now a backdrop for Kyle's party. I didn't know what hurt more, that they threw a party for him on the night before my birthday, or that they couldn't even be bothered to respect the things I'd worked for. Then I saw it, a laptop bag peeking out from behind a pile of gifts. It was the exact model I'd told Mom I was saving up for, the one I'd been eyeing for months. I had mentioned it to her just a couple of weeks ago. I'd been careful not to ask for it, knowing full well that it wasn't in the budget. But I'd talked about it, hoping maybe she'd remember. Now, there it was. A gift for Kyle, the one who didn't need it, the one who had everything handed to him. That bag was mine. It should have been mine. I sat down hard, my mind spinning. I wasn't angry, I was defeated. The reality of it all hit me in that moment. I'd helped fund this party. The money I had sent last month to cover Kyle's rent, to keep him afloat while he did nothing, had gone straight to this celebration. I had been tricked, played for a fool. The money I sent wasn't just going to pay bills. It had been used to throw Kyle a party I wasn't even invited to. It wasn't just the party. It was the fact that, for years, I had been a backup. The one who picked up the pieces when things went wrong. The one who made sure everything stayed functional and neat, while they all lived their lives without any real understanding of what I'd done for them. I closed my phone, my stomach turned. I could barely take it all in. For the first time, I realized I wasn't just being ignored. I was being actively excluded, and they didn't even feel the need to hide it. I went home that night and opened the spreadsheet I'd been quietly keeping for years. I didn't want to do it, but I had to. The numbers were right there in front of me. Rent payments, car notes, utilities. 19th and 410 since 2022. I had all the receipts, email confirmations from his landlord, late payment notices, proof of my deposits. I even had his termination letter, the one he forgot I helped set up for his work email. I had everything. I wasn't stupid. I'd known this was a bad deal, but seeing it all laid out in front of me was something else. I had been keeping track of the money I'd sent him for months, but now the weight of it hit me all at once. I wasn't just helping him pay his rent. I was enabling him to stay stuck, to keep pretending that someone else would always fix his problems. That night, I sent 3 things. The first, I canceled the rent auto payment. The second, I emailed his landlord and let them know I was done. I wasn't footing his bills anymore. The third was to my parents. I attached every bit of proof I had. The payments, the late notices, his termination letter. I didn't sugarcoat it. I didn't apologize. I wrote, "I'm stepping back, permanently." Then, for the first time in what felt like forever, I shut my phone off. I didn't want to wait for any responses. I didn't want to hear Kyle begging or Mom trying to guilt trip me. I didn't care about the fallout anymore. I went to bed. I didn't even feel a flicker of regret. I just felt relief. It was like I could finally breathe again, after years of holding my breath. The world didn't collapse around me. Nothing exploded. I wasn't going to fix things for them anymore, and for the first time, I felt like I had made the right decision. The first week after I sent those emails was a blur of missed calls and angry voicemails, over 30 of them. Most of the messages were variations on a theme: begging, guilt-tripping, trying to make me feel like the villain. I blocked most of the numbers, but they kept coming in, relentless. Mom left a message through the building front desk. "Your brother is devastated. Fix this or don't bother calling us again." I could hear the desperation in her voice, the manipulation. It wasn't even about what was best for me. It was about keeping Kyle comfortable, keeping the status quo intact. Dad emailed me the next day. "Let's talk like men. This seems extreme." Like this was some kind of misunderstanding. I didn't even hesitate before replying. So was 3 years of lies. I wasn't playing the game anymore. I wasn't going to apologize for drawing a line. It wasn't extreme. It was necessary. Then came Kyle. He texted me from a mutual friend's phone. "You're ruining my life." I didn't respond. I shouldn't have been surprised. It was the same thing he always said when the consequences of his actions caught up with him. A couple hours later, another message. "It was just a joke. You take things too personally." It wasn't a joke, but I didn't bother arguing. I had nothing left to say to him. I stayed silent. No phone calls, no texts, no apologies. Instead, I called a therapist. It was time to start showing up for myself. I wasn't going to keep ignoring what I needed anymore. Then, in the middle of all this, Amber, my cousin, who always seemed to understand, sent me flowers. A small gesture, but it was everything. The card read, "You deserved a birthday too." It hit me harder than I thought it would. That was all I'd wanted, really, to be seen, to be acknowledged. I wasn't asking for much, but I hadn't been given that by the people who were supposed to be closest to me. I sat there looking at the flowers, feeling a strange mix of sadness and gratitude. I wasn't sure where this was going to lead, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep doing this. Not for them. Not anymore. Day 11. I walked into the lobby of my office building, head down, trying to get through the day like usual. I hadn't heard from anyone in a couple of days, but I knew that wasn't going to last long. I didn't expect her to show up at my work, though. My mom, furious. She spotted me in the lobby and stormed over, her face flushed. The second I saw her, I knew what was coming. "You humiliated me," she spat, eyes wide, voice cracking with anger. "You ambushed the family." I didn't say anything at first. I just stared at her, the sharp sting of her words hanging in the air. She wasn't angry because of what I had done. She was angry because I had stopped playing my part in the family's mess. I wasn't fixing things anymore, and that had her scrambling. Finally, I spoke. "I'm not a backup parent anymore, Mom." That set her off. "Your brother's about to be homeless. Do you care?" Her voice broke on the last word, almost pleading, but I wasn't moved. I stood there, arms crossed, feeling a weight lift off me with each word I spoke. For once, he'll have to care for himself. Her face twisted. "You can't just leave him like this." I shook my head. "I've been leaving him like this for years. He needs to figure it out." I wasn't going to get into it with her, though. It wasn't the time for that. She wasn't listening to anything I said. Not really. This was all about her guilt, her need to believe that everything would be okay if I just kept rescuing Kyle. That night, my entire family showed up at my apartment. Mom, Dad, and Kyle. They stood in front of my door like they had every right to be there, like they could demand things from me. Kyle started first, crying, begging me to help him again. He looked pathetic, his face flushed with frustration and desperation. "Please," he said, voice cracking. "I need your help. I can't do this without you." His voice was raw, but I wasn't buying it. Not anymore. "No, Kyle, I'm done." Mom stepped in, her tone sharp, the urgency in her voice unmistakable. "You need to reinstate the payments. We can't keep going like this. He can't." I looked at her, then at Kyle, both of them pleading, and for the first time, I didn't feel that familiar pull to fix everything. I was done. "No," I said, my voice steady. "I'm not doing that anymore." The room fell silent for a second. I could see the shock in their eyes. They weren't used to me saying no. They expected me to cave, to give in like I always had before. But I wasn't that person anymore. I wasn't going to be their safety net. I looked directly at Mom and dropped the real bombshell. "I've accepted a job transfer to Denver. I leave in 3 weeks." Her face went pale. "What?" She sounded like I'd slapped her. "Who's going to help us now?" she demanded, her voice tight with panic. I took a breath, exhaling slowly, trying to keep my composure. That's not my role anymore. I didn't need to explain further. They heard me, even if they didn't want to. This was my life now. I had finally taken control, and no matter how much they needed me, I wasn't going back. After I told them about Denver, Kyle stood there for a long time, staring at me, disbelief written all over his face. Then he finally spoke, his voice shaking. "You're seriously letting me get evicted over a party?" I didn't hesitate. "I'm letting you grow up." He stared at me like I had just told him I was leaving the country for good. "But," he shook his head, clearly grasping for something to fix this. "I'll pay you back. I'll do better. Just don't leave me like this." I felt a dull ache in my chest, but I didn't back down. "You've said that before, Kyle, and nothing ever changes." He opened his mouth, ready to say something else, but Mom cut him off. She was already starting to pack up, fidgeting with her purse, trying to keep everything together. She couldn't stand the silence. They couldn't face the reality that I wasn't going to fix it anymore. The rest of them left, but Dad stayed behind for a minute. I didn't know what he was waiting for, but I knew he wasn't going to leave without saying something. "I failed you," he muttered, his voice quiet, almost swallowed up by the awkwardness of the moment. I just looked at him. It wasn't much, but it was real, a small acknowledgement, something I'd been waiting for my whole life. "It's late, Dad." He nodded, rubbing his hand across his face like he was trying to wash away the years. "I'm sorry." I didn't know how to respond, so I didn't. He was gone a minute later, leaving me standing in my apartment, alone. The week that followed was filled with more silence than I was used to. I didn't get any more calls from Mom, and Kyle didn't reach out either. I knew he was struggling, but I also knew that was his problem now, not mine. Amber kept me updated, though. She told me Kyle had found a roommate and managed to get a job at a gas station. It wasn't much, but it was something. She sent me a text one day saying, "I'm proud of you. He'll figure it out." I bought my plane ticket the next morning. The transfer to Denver was happening, and I wasn't looking back. Packing up wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. I kept it simple. Clothes, some books, the basics. But when I shut off the group chat for good, something inside me clicked. I wasn't just leaving the apartment. I was leaving the whole situation. No more rescues, no more crumbs, no more being the one who always picked up the pieces. I was done. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't worried about what would happen next. 6 months later, I stood on my Denver apartment balcony watching the sun dip behind the Rockies. The view was everything I'd hoped for, vast and open. It felt like the world had expanded, and I could finally breathe. I hadn't heard much from Mom since I left. She'd texted a couple of times, asking if I was settling in, okay, but it was like she didn't know how to talk to me anymore. Dad called once. He asked if he could visit in the fall, maybe do some guy stuff. I didn't say no, but I didn't say yes either. I wasn't sure how I felt about that yet. Kyle hadn't reached out directly at all, which didn't surprise me. But then, last week, I got an email from him. It was short and to the point. He told me he'd enrolled in a trade school and was working full-time now. No apology, no thanks, but there was no blame either. It was progress. I thought about it for a minute, then replied, "Good to hear. Let's keep things respectful and forward-focused." That was all. It was the kind of message that I didn't need to dissect. It was clear, no games. I wasn't bitter, not anymore. I was just free. This year, for my birthday, I threw my own BBQ. No surprises, just real friends, good food, and no drama. It was simple, but it was mine. There was no waiting for someone to remember me or try to make things right. I didn't need a family to show up for me anymore. I had finally shown up for myself. As I stood there, watching the last light of the day flicker out over the mountains, I felt something I hadn't known I was missing. Peace. And for once, it was all mine.